What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you, believe it or not, because there's still more releases we wanted to cover before unleashing our year-end lists. And this one we definitely wanted to check out. So we are going over the latest offering from Jarhead Fertilizer, Carceral Warfare. This comes out on the 8th of December on Closed Casket Activities. This band formed in 2011 in Ocean City, Maryland. This is their second full-length overall. The main reason why we're going over them is because we've actually seen this band before. We saw them with Blood Incantation and Primitive Man last year. One of the heaviest shows I think we went to that year, mostly due to Primitive Man being insanely heavy and almost physically hurting my brain with how heavy they were.
Yeah, I remember that show. That whole show was kind of just a mind bender.
Yeah, and Jarhead Fertilizer was the opening act on that bill. We knew nothing about them going in. We knew that they had current and former members of Full of Hell. That is generally enough to actually get me interested there. And they put on an absolutely killer show, so we wanted to check this out. And for those that don't know, this band started off as, I guess, arguably more of a power violence / grindcore band, but have kind of shifted gears to more death metal / death grind. But honestly, this album's kind of like all over the place. It is really shifty and odd, and that is like a continuous thing that goes on the entire 28 minutes of this album. It is really kind of nuts.
Starts off with Blood of the Lamb, and I just gotta say, oh shit, Sirens G.
Dude, I mean, it starts off like a dark gangster rap album. Like, I was reminded of like Gravediggers and, you know, like shit like that. Like, okay, all right. And then just abruptly shifts into Death Doom. Like, big, droning, swampy, sludgy, disgusting guitars, cavernous vocals, slow plodding rhythms, and it slowly picks up pace, gets into the grindy sections. And honestly, like, grind, I don't feel like is the biggest part of their sound. Like, I think a lot of this is definitely a lot of like old school death metal. Like, there's a lot of stuff that is very similar to like Incantation. Like, you get the pinch harmonics that are kind of like scattered all over, and the really nasty tremolo riffs, and with those deep gurgly vocals too. Like, also you could say like earlier Tomb Mold as well.
Yep. Songs like Mark of the Beast, Street Successor, the title track, and even Cell Warrior still have some grindy moments in them. Like, those are the songs I think that stand out pretty much as straightforward grind throughout a majority of the song.
Yeah, I mean, definitely like death grind, like, I mean, with the guitar tone being so swampy and disgusting, and definitely favoring like more of a death metal tone, but like the riff structure and such, like, you know, especially on Street Successor, you get reminded of bands like Terrorizer, Impetigo, or like newer bands like Deathgrave or Escuela Grind. You get like some just nasty blast beats, some heavy grooves in there, but it's kind of like a punk and hardcore vibe. But this album is, again, it's kind of all over the place, and there's a big thing with atmosphere in here. Like, these guys like to set up stuff in terms of what they're going into pretty well and pretty lavishly at times. Like, we brought up with the opening track, kind of opening up with what sounds like it's leading into gangster rap, but
oh shit,
totally wasn't. But you get to later tracks like Parasitic Pathology, which opens up with a creepy biblical quote, which, I mean, honestly, you could say anything from the Bible and put a weird filter over the voice, and it sounds creepy. But you also have Wrath of Judas, which has, I don't know what movie it's sampled from, but this guy is going down a list of horrible, horrible things. Maybe it was a rough vacation, I don't know. But it really kind of sets the mood in terms of just how dark and nasty that song is. And then the last track, the title track, has, well, one of my favorite quotes from George C. Scott from Exorcist 3 when he's pinned against the wall yelling at the devil. And, I mean, it sounds like the devil was listening. He goes over his list of things he believes in, and if you've seen that movie, you know that's a great speech. But they really like to set the mood a lot. And generally with like grindcore oriented stuff, the songs are shorter. I would say they're kind of mid-range on here. There's a couple of tracks that are around the 5-minute mark. In fact, I think Wrath of Judas is over 5 minutes.
5 minutes and 9 seconds.
But I think a lot of attention is spent on atmosphere, to the point where you have some songs on here that are kind of just atmosphere rather than like, you know, an actual song like Torture Cage. It's essentially kind of a looped, you know, kind of industrial drum beat. Honestly, it sounds like Godflesh.
I thought it sounded kind of like a mixture between trip hop and lo-fi. beats.
I mean, that also could describe Godflesh.
Because then it's got that droning bass over it, but it is kind of like still hip-hop-ish.
Godflesh again.
Eh?
Yeah, no, it's just creepy and unsettling. Like, there's not really like riffs, but there's like kind of squawking atmosphere and what sounds like looped breathing and groaning. Pretty much, it's like Goth Night in an old abandoned hospital that's 100% haunted. And then the song Hysteria, which is not a cover of Def Leppard, but I actually kind of like this one better than anything on Hysteria because I don't like that album. This is just kind of a noise track. Honestly, it's the most familiar thing if you go into this expecting stuff that sounds like Full of Hell. It is a kind of just noise track. Like, it has a chaotic start. It sounds like there are two monsters fighting each other, which the vocals occasionally get past the low kind of like, swampy, cavernous roars. Like, you get some higher screams done by the guitarist, I believe. But then it breaks into like just this weird kind of noisy atmosphere, and then the drummer just goes apeshit for a while.
You get the Candiria style drum solo over the instrumental noise. I liked it. He did a good job. Good job.
Yeah, and the drummer is the guy doing the vocals on here for the most part, which is another interesting comparison to Tomb Mold too, because the drum work in here is intense. Like, there's a lot of stuff on here that reminds me of like, Morbid Angel, like Danny Herrera from Napalm Death, and I would definitely say Autopsy, and that kind of goes beyond just the drum work too. Like, it's again like frantic and punky occasionally. You get a lot of two-steps and blast beats and like big heavy syncopated breakdowns, but also like the tone of the music, like in terms of how they're heavy. Like, when they decide to get like slower and heavier, it is definitely more of a Death Doom sound, especially in like Wrath of Judas. Very grim, dark, just kind of disgusting song overall.
And I thought too, in Blood of the Lamb, I thought that was actually closer to Funeral Doom. And all the death metal elements seem very like old school, like the crawling riffs in the title track, or most of the breakdowns I thought to be closer to like slam or like brutal death, like a lot of suffocation type worship I saw going on, which again leads to the more stylistic shifts, like hip-hop and trip-hop, and then death doom, and then grind, and then old-school death metal riffs, and it's like jam-packed in every song. And most of these songs are, 2.5, 3 minutes. There are a couple of longer tracks here and there, again, Wrath of Judas being the longest at 5 minutes and 9 seconds. But I mean, like, this is changing constantly.
Yeah, it's very shifty. It's kind of hard to get a hold of. Like, and once you do get a hold of it, it kind of shifts on to the next thing. Like, it's kind of just like gross riff salad. So like, all the lettuce is wilted and the dressing is definitely like some bodily fluids whirled up together.
Oh, Caesar salad made of real Caesar.
Like blood and whatever else spilled out of him after they knifed him like 26 times. But I will say that I think some of the atmosphere is a little bit overdone. Like Wrath of Judas. I think Wrath of Judas is an interesting song in theory, because I feel like it takes a long time to build up. Like, you have the long sample kind of setting the mood in terms, again, of all the rough stuff that the dude's talking about. You get like a bass and drum start to it, and like kind of the atmosphere builds up.
Kind of reminds me of Public Enemy. Actually, right before it starts to build up, like when it's in that whole jam vibe, it's just got that kind of feeling to it. I'm just waiting for hey!
And it does build into like a grimy, old school death metal song. Like, it's just dreary and kind of miserable. Like, tonally, I think this one kind of stands out just for being a little bit darker sounding and like less violent. It has more of like a horror vibe to it. Like, there's even like a blood curdling I just got murdered in an 80s slasher scream that kind of pops up out of nowhere on there. And well, then the song kind of just peters out.
I will say that the transition from Public Enemy to death metal is really, really smooth. That's actually probably one of the smoothest transitions in the whole album.
Yeah, some of the transitions in here I would definitely say are a bit jarring.
Well,
while I like a lot of what they're doing on here, I feel like it's really condensed, and again, it's sometimes a little too shifty to hold on to, and again, some of the atmosphere overtakes the songs. Like, you get a long atmospheric buildup, and then most of a song, and then even the end of the song might be like kind of an atmospheric sort of build up into the next one. Like, you kind of get that on Torture Cage into Parasitic Pathology, which I think Parasitic Pathology is an absolute banger of a song, but I do feel like it takes a little while to get going after Torture Cage is sort of that weird, moody, almost interlude instrumental. I don't know, like, I feel like there's a lot of styles that they wanted to represent and cram into this, but I don't think they gave enough room for them all to breathe.
Yeah, it does seem to shift an awful lot, and it's not that I'm necessarily against that happening in music, but I feel like sometimes stylistically it doesn't even necessarily fit together. They just put it there.
Yeah, it doesn't always coalesce. I mean, it is always heavy. Mm-hmm. It is always dark, and it's heavy in different ways, which I kind of appreciate. But as a whole, like, it doesn't quite completely gel. But at the same time, like, listening to it front to back, and I listened to it earlier today to just kind of get like a vibe for it. It's a solid listen. It's just, again, kind of scattershot, and maybe that's what they were going for. But overall, I did enjoy this. So I am going to give this 3.5 stars. I think this is a really solid offering. I need to listen to some of their earlier stuff just to hear more of what they sounded like back then. But as far as embracing more of the death metal tropes, they 100% got the riffs. It's just sort of the arrangement sometimes. Like, it's very kind of spazzy at times. But again, that kind of leads to the just overall dark, unsettling vibe on this album. Like, it's got all the grindcore violence, but it also has that death metal atmosphere, and again, like, atmosphere that oddly fits but occasionally doesn't. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, again, opening up with like a kind of a hip-hop rhythm and sirens, and then I had to sit here and watch him do that multiple times. It kind of catches you like right at the start, like, wait, what? Hold on, did I play the right album?
Yep.
But overall, I think this is pretty damn good. Like, if you like bands like Squalor Grind, Terrorizer, Tomb Mold, Autopsy, and probably Full of Hell to some extent, though I think this band has it a little bit more reined in terms of like the control and such. Like, this doesn't have all the excessive noisy breaks that Full of Hell does here, especially lately. But I'd say definitely check it out. Give it a whirl.
I'm going to go ahead and give this 3 stars. Like Nick said, it's definitely heavy, snarling, gross guitars, cavernous growls, squawky lead melodies, nasty tremolos, all the things I like about death metal. However, I just feel like at times it didn't gel the way that I at least thought it should. Now, granted, I'm not in the band, I didn't write the album, the fuck do I know? But it was kind of hard to get a hold of at times, even though it was disgustingly heavy. Like, you know, you get a lot of nasty suffocation vibes. I get a lot of Maul vibes from it. Like, again, a bunch of things I like. It just didn't necessarily flow together, even though I was entertained. I just couldn't grasp a hold of the record as much as I would have liked to, considering all the elements that were in there that I really did enjoy. Regardless, I think you should check out this record. It's going to be a good time to listen to the influences that are in there. Again, definitely Full of Hell, albeit not as jarring as Full of Hell would be.
Less jarring.
Yeah, less jarring. Maul, Fossilization, Phobophilic, Candiria, Public Enemy. Suffocation. Like, it's all in there. It's just kind of a hodgepodge, but it's still a pretty good time. I'd recommend checking it out.
So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. It is also on our channel, but thrallsmetal.com is where you go to find Thralls Metal stuff. We have shirts. We have old shirts at a discounted price. We even have hats now, so if you're looking for any of that stuff, the link is down below.
Last but not least, always stuff going on here at Thralls of Metal. Although we're about to reach the end of another year, it's been a great year for this channel. I mean, we had the Denver Death Fest, we went to Full Terror Assault, we've been to countless shows. Our subscribers have gone up again through the roof. We've had a lot of great interactions with people. We're very appreciative of that. Coming soon, we have our end of year list. You can probably expect to see those here in the next week or so. Black Dahlia Murder ranking is coming. We're probably going to throw in some retro reviews, because really, we can't really go without doing things with this channel, because I don't know what else I would do at this point in the game. This has become such a big part of our lives, and we are really appreciative to all of you that help make Thralls of Metal what it is. Thank you so much for being a part of everything. We're enthralled by your presence.
On that note, thank you once again. I'm going to do my best to say something less weird than that. I mean, but no, that was pretty well played. All right.
Thank you.
Almost as bad as the whole jar thing. Either way, thank you guys so much, and we will catch you later.